Jonathan Hickman's X-Men relaunch at Marvel is in full swing with this week's release of X-Men #1, featuring art by Lionel Francis Yu. And even though it says #1 on the cover, remember this also has a legacy numbering, 645, for issues of Uncanny X-Men total across all volumes. But hopefully you didn't just skip right from issue 644 to this one, because if you did, you would have missed the 12 issues in between that was House of X and Powers of 10. You know, I always think if people are trying to put together these collections years or decades after the fact, how confusing must it be to remember, okay, so we go from, what is it, Uncanny X-Men Volume 4 or 5 or even 6 now, issue 23 or 24, to the new volume #1, but in between that were all these miniseries. It's got to be confusing. And, you know, there's an example of when that's relevant even in this issue, because Hickman is making reference to stuff from X-Men Legacy, not to be confused with Legacy numbering. See how confusing this gets? So X-Men Legacy, well, before they called it Legacy, X-Men, Adjectiveless X-Men, #188. There was the whole storyline in there about the Children of the Vault, and that is going to come back in a big way in this issue. So consider that a minor spoiler, but there's going to be a lot more spoilers in this review. So there's your warning. So let's get right into it. This issue starts with an X-Men strike team led by Cyclops and Storm making a brave, daring assault on one of the Orchis Project's bases, which, you know, if you've read the House of X miniseries, you remember the Orchis Forge being this space station where they were trying to put together a master mold, you know, a sentinel that could create other sentinels and help these humans wipe out those pesky mutants. I'm not actually clear on if Orchis was a project or a group of villains or scientists or whatever that had appeared in earlier comics before Hickman's run, but at least in this one they make reference to all the scientists in Orchis being from other established, you know, Marvel super scientist enclaves, whether that's SHIELD or Armor or even Hammer or AIM, you know, all your favorite acronyms. I think they even, well, no, the one they leave out is SWORD, the one that's all extraterrestrial stuff, which I thought was strange. That's going back to what Cassidy's Astonishing X-Men run. But that's fine, you know, just a little bit of fan service for you, a little bit of a callback. But again, back to the main plot of this book. Cyclops and Storm are invading this Orchis Project. Not sure exactly why at first. We know they have to run into a couple of savvy apes with PhDs, which really, this issue has everything. It's got apes with PhDs, it's got family moments, it's got action, it's even got literally the kitchen sink, but we'll come back to that in a second. The kitchen sink scene in this issue of X-Men. So as they're attacking this base, and ultimately to the purpose of freeing some more seemingly Children of the Vault, you know, humans who had been temporarily experimented on, who are born in some way outside of time, and so don't quite have secondary mutations or anything. They don't have the X gene, but they're not quite human. They're these post-human characters that ultimately I think may end up being the characters, the Homo Novissima, that were in the last issue of Powers of 10 from last week, Powers of 10 #6. But whether that happens at this point, still up in the air, still some debate on that. What we know is that, well, do we know this even? Storm, I would say, is acting a little out of character in this scene. She has this kind of disturbing quote talking about the conquered people here being the humans, and saying suicide bombs and serving the greater good are always the last refuge of a conquered people, which is kind of a strange thing to say. You know, maybe this is a bit of, on Hickman's part, some dialogue that's meant to be an intentional turnaround on the previous status quo of the X-Men, but you'd think, you know, if they had been in that status quo before, they wouldn't be saying these sorts of things. It just seems untoward, you know, uncivilized at the very least. But there might also be a character reason for this. You know, Storm does mention in a later scene in this issue that she's tired of fighting, but never tired of lifting up lifting up the other mutants around her. So who knows if she's having some sort of nervous breakdown from lack of sleep, or we're building to some sort of character reveal here, but still kind of interesting. Other interesting bits of dialogue in these scenes at the Orchis base. Magneto really selling his nobility here, talking about, would it be too much to ask when I land on the floor down there that there's not only any rubble, but there's no rabble. Polaris, my daughter, could you take care of this? And she does. So I guess we're also back to, Magneto's parentage is always kind of a tricky subject. Like, is Quicksilver his kid right now? Is the Scarlet Witch his kid? Were they just gypsies raised by him, not his kids at all? How about Polaris? Here, at least, she's calling him dad. He's calling her daughter. So there's that family connection is still here. So after the X-Men ultimately beginning action scene, they beat all the apes with PhDs. They beat the Orchis soldiers. They rescue the children of the vault. One of the children speaks in riddles and then disappears, traveling through time or space, who knows. But the rest of the kids are taken back to the Paradise Island where the X-Men live now, their new status quo base of Krakoa. And when they get there, they get a hero's return. Magneto especially, there's young mutants gathering around him and saying, hey, you're awesome. We love how violent you are. We want to go out and do some action too. Call us next time, please. And Magneto's like, no, this makes sense, of course. I fought so hard for you so that you don't have to. But, if you know anything about the history of mankind, mutant kind, any people, you realize that's not going to happen. You say, I fought so you don't have to, but these kids, they're eventually going to get drafted. They're going to be brought in as New Mutants to fight this ongoing war. That's, what they say, war. War never changes, and it's no different for the X-Men. So after they drop off these kids, the children of the vault, I'm assuming the Summers go back to the blue area of the moon, which is now where the Summers clan has set up base. Summers, Cyclops, no Emma Frost though. I guess this relationship is over. Again, going back to right before the House of X Powers of 10 miniseries in the last issue of Uncanny X-Men, Cyclops and Jean Grey shared a meaningful, passionate kiss. Is it going to be the same here? Are they going to live in wedded bliss? Or here's the other piece of speculation that's been going about. Is there some polyamory at play? Because, in this base we get a layout, we get a map of the Summers base, the X-Men's base on the blue area of the moon. And they have all these suites of rooms. And there's a room for Rachel Gray, Prestige, formerly Phoenix, one of the Phoenixies. Nate Gray, who is, I guess, like a chronally de-aged Nathan Summers. He's no longer older than his old man as Old Man Cable. He's now a lot younger. And then a room for Havoc, a room for Vulcan, the other Summers brothers. And then, strangely enough, there's a suite of rooms. Jean Grey in the middle. Marvel Girls got the middle suite with open doors going to Wolverine's room on the left and Cyclops' room on the right. So there's been speculation that based just on this floor plan at this point, that all these three are basically dating each other. They're, what I heard this term for the first time this last week, they're a throuple. They're a 3-person couple. Now, I don't think, if I had to guess, I don't think this is really a direction Marvel is going to be going in. I don't think they're going to be encouraging polyamory in their T for Teen books, but you never know. It's strange enough. So the X-Men here, they're celebrating. They've got this great new house on the moon. They got an interesting floor plan, and they're having dinner. The Summers brothers, all three of them, finally. Vulcan hardly ever shows up, but all three of the Summers brothers having dinner with their dad, Corsair, and his team of international space pirates, the Starjammers. There's a lot of fun character moments in this, and definitely something I would recommend picking up this book for just the whole dinner scenes. There's a lot of great interactions between Vulcan and Wolverine about stakes, Prestige, and I forget the cat girl's name for the Starjammers. Hezbollah. A lot of great character interactions from them. And then, like I already hinted at, this issue has everything, including the kitchen sink. And, one of the benefits, apparently, of having these Krakoan flowers, these seeds that can grow anywhere and create portals to the home island of Krakoa, is that They have a very interesting washing drying device. Cyclops says, well, initially Krakoa was just trying to give us, like actual biome plates that we were going to eat and were going to help us with our gut bacteria. But the compromise was we have actual plates, we spray them with this goo, and the goo makes it so that you don't actually have to wash it. It just eats all the bacteria and basically farts it out as a harmless gas. Kind of like the best mushrooms on the planet do that. They take in these terrible bacteria, get rid of them, eject it as a harmless gas. So there you go. And it's actually interesting to me too, because very rarely in superhero comics do we get the answers to the tough questions of like, how do they do the dishes? All these people living together on the moon in this like, a nice looking house, but you got to share even a nice house with 12 to 15 other people. That one of the first things to go is, well, the bathroom, but we're not touching that. But the other thing to go when you're living in a shared space is the kitchen. It just gets filthy immediately. So easing that process as much as possible is great, and really a rare visit to the kitchen for superhero comics, but it's good. I'm glad they gave us some reasoning for this. The only other instance I can remember of this is like Art Adams in the 80s. His tryout pages for Marvel, was the Avengers, was like, I think Beast and Vision washing dishes together in Avengers Mansion. But besides that, hardly a subject that ever gets tossed. So last scene in this issue, we end with a bit of a cliffhanger on now the humans at the Orchis Project. Dr. Gregor and Devo have figured out supposedly some way to also bring humans back to life. If you read the previous issues of this X-Men comic, the X-Men are now free from death. They can resurrect or clone each other as many times as they need to come back to life. So if the humans had this capability now, well, it's like I said, war. War never changes. It's going to keep going. And I'm going to keep going. I'm going to read the next issue. I wonder, will you as well? Are you liking this? Are you enjoying this new relaunch of Hickman's X-Men with art by you? Great art by you. I didn't give it a lot of review today, but I do want to say I am really enjoying, as always, Leinil Francis Yu's art on X-Men. And it's certainly, not the first time they've used him to launch, a new era in X-Men. I remember back X-Men 100, adjectiveless X-Men 100. The first time that Claremont came back, Yu was on the title with him. He did great work there. Flash forward, almost 20 years. Wow, almost 20 years, and he's still doing great work on X-Men. So that's awesome. I'm really looking forward to the next issue. Like I already asked, are you? Leave a message in the comments below if you're going to be checking out future issues of this run of X-Men. Tell me what you liked, even what you didn't like in this issue. And, if you like this video, why not smash that like button, please. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, tap the bell for notifications. And like always, I'm always drawn on this channel. If you're drawn on your channel, let me know about it. If you're an artist yourself, remember, you got to keep drawing. You got to draw every day, the only way to get better. So to all the artists out there, until next time, keep drawing.